Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityanam Chiva Narodavam Devim Sarasvatimi Samtatujaya Mujriyat Srinvadam Svagatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantas Sthopya Bhadrani Vedinoti Sursatam Nashta Presha Bhadrashanityam Bhagavate Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Nishtiki. We will be reading today Canto 4, Chapter 29, Texts 82 and 83. Text 82. Tatraika grama nadhiro kufinda charanam bhujam vimukta sangono bhajan bhakta tat samyatmagad. Synonyms. Tatra there, eka agramana, with full attention, thira sober, govinda of Krishna, charana abhujam, unto the lotus feet, vimukta freed from, sangha material association, anubhajan continuously engaged in devotional service, bhaktya by pure devotion, tat with the Lord, samyatam qualitative equality, agat achieved. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Having undergone austerities and penances at Kapilashrama, King Prachinabarhi attained full liberation from all material designations. He constantly engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord and attained a spiritual position qualitatively equal to that of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. There is special significance in the words Tat Samyatam Agat. The king attained the position of possessing the same status of the same form as that of the Lord. This definitely proves that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always a person. In his impersonal feature, he is the rays of his transcendental body. When a living entity attains spiritual perfection, he also attains the same type of body, known as Satchitananda Vigraha. This spiritual body never mixes with the material elements. Although in conditional life, the living entity is surrounded by material elements, earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence, and ego, he remains always aloof from them. In other words, the living entity can be liberated from the material condition at any moment, provided that he wishes to do so. The material environment is called Maya. According to Krishna, Daivihi Eshaguna Maya, Mama Maya Duratya, Mam Eve Prapadante, Mayam Etam Tarantite. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Bhagavad Gita 7.14. As soon as the living entity engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he immediately attains freedom from all material conditions. Sagunan samitatyatan brahma bhuya kalpate. In the material state, the living entity is on the Jiva Bhuta platform, but when he renders devotional service to the Lord, he is elevated to the Brahma Bhuta platform. On the Brahma Bhuta platform, the living entity is liberated from material bondage, and he engages in the service of the Lord. In this verse, the word Thira is sometimes read as Vira. Actually, there is no very much difference. The word Thira means sober, and Vira means hero. One who is struggling against Maya is a hero, and one who is sober enough to understand his position is a Dhira. Without becoming sober or heroic, one cannot attain spiritual salvation. Text 83. Etat adhatma paroksham gitam tvarshananaka yaha shravayad yaha shranayad salingena vimuchate. Etat, this adhatma, spiritual, paroksham, authorized description, Gitam, narrated, Devarshana, by the great sage Narada, Anaga, or spotless Vidura, Yaha, anyone who, Shravayat, may describe, Yaha, anyone who, Shrnuyad may hear, Sahahi, Lingena from the bodily concept of life. Vimuchate becomes delivered. Translation. My dear Vidura, one who hears this narration concerning the understanding of the living entity's spiritual existence, as described by the great sage Narada, or who relates it to others, will be liberated from the bodily conception of life. Purport. This material creation is the spiritual soul's dream. Actually, all existence in the material world is a dream of Mahavishnu, as the Brahma Samhita describes. Yaham karanarvam chalip hajatis mayoga nidram ananta jagat anda saroma kubha. This material world is created by the dreaming of Mahavishnu. The real factual platform is the spiritual world. But when the spirit soul wants to imitate the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is put into this dreamland of material creation. After being in contact with the material modes of nature, the living entity develops the subtle and gross bodies. When the living entity is fortunate enough to associate with Sri Narada Mahamuni or his servants, he is liberated from this dreamland of material creation and the bodily conception of life. End of purport. Om Gyana Trivanandasya, Ninanjana Shalakaya, Chikshurunitamnila, Tasmai Shri Guruvena Manha, Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prish. Штабатали Шримати Бхактивиданта Свами Нитянамни. Намасте Сарасвати Деви Гурувани Бхакчарани Нируша Шримати Пашчати Штарни. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I humbly bow down and seek blessings from everyone who assembled today, and thank you for the opportunity to read Srimad Bhagavatam for my own purification. I've selected a few points to summarize from lectures from Parampara. We are reading Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 4, Chapter 29, which is called Talks Between Narada and King Prajnapari. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva, who is compiler of Vedic literature, was meditating. And Srila Prabhupada mentioned that when he was meditating, he saw Krishna personally, not Brahman effulgence, but Purusham Purnam, which means the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Today in text 82, we have read that after austerities and penances, the king Prajnabarhi attained the same qualitative position, the same state as the Supreme Lord, which definitely proves that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always a person. The Supreme Lord has three features, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. The highest of all is the Bhagavan feature. And the nature of the Bhagavan feature is filled with all opulence, and nothing is higher or is equal to this feature. Srila Prabhupada mentioned that Supreme Personality Sri Krishna is always a person, and Srila Prabhupada is mentioning the process, how one can attain the Supreme Lord. The process of bhakti elevates one to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A lot of people are thinking about themselves as, I am the body. Body means sickness, old age, and death. People should go from body conscious to Krishna conscious and perform such activities that would take one away from sense gratification. In ISKCON, 4 regulative principles are observed. Restrictions for the body, depriving the body from its natural attractions, putting it through the rules and regulations. Srila Prabhupada mentions that activities are prescribed in a regulative way, so there will be no possibilities for sense gratification. When one follows rules and regulations, it might appear for others that he is restricting his senses from enjoying those things, but they are necessary. Like in traffic signals, there are green, yellow, and red lights, and when there is a red light, one is expected to stop the vehicle. Traffic is controlled to keep everyone safe and prolong one's life. If one will think one should be free from rules and regulations, not follow traffic rules and regulations, he will be free to get entangled in the traffic jams and in accidents. He will endanger his life and very soon might stop his life. We are told that the body has to be restrained. Certain activities should be done in specific ways. Rules and regulations appears to bind a person, but Srila Prabhupada recommends and mentions many times for us that four regulatory principles gives us freedom. When one restrains himself and follows regulatory principles, he attains freedom from material entanglement. People around us nowadays want to enjoy senses. They have limited resources but unlimited desires. They don't like any rules or regulations. Srila Prabhupada mentions that chaos in Western society is called freedom and independence. Everyone wants equal right with no rules or regulations. And relationship of a man and a woman, if a man leaves, the woman has to raise the child and may become a burden for the society or government. So, so-called independence might entangle more another person and entangle people in general, and no peace in the society comes. Srila Prabhupada says that rules and regulations are meant to free the people from sufferings. In material world, conditioned soul is surrounded by material elements, but he can be liberated from material condition at any moment if he wishes to do so. At every moment, every living entity is given a choice whether one wants to serve the Lord and become dependent on Him, or one wants to be independent. If one wants to be independent, he is getting entrapped in material nature. As soon as one desires to surrender to Krishna, he can be elevated from material condition. All devotees should keep in mind that every second they have a choice. Think, do I want to surrender to Krishna, or do I want to do something else? Srila Prabhupada mentions that gross body dies, but subtle body is continued journey in next birth, and it takes a lot of time to dissolve the subtle body. It's harder to follow mental restrictions, to avoid bad thoughts, to follow mental principles, because we have subtle body from the time immemorial. The gross body is given to us at the time of birth. It is the product of this lifetime, but the subtle body one possesses from the time immemorial. That's why it is very difficult to free the mind from falling in material traps. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna tells Krishna that when he tries controlling mind, he feels disturbed, and Krishna suggests to start with controlling senses. Then the mind will automatically engage. When one tells his hand to not take particular object, it normally obeys, but if you tell the mind, don't think about that, it goes to that place. But if one controls the senses, the mind in due course of time will follow the senses. We see in material world that people are losing their senses, what to speak about mind. There is no education how to restrain the senses and focus on the Lord. When the senses are not focused towards the Lord, there is no way to have a focused mind. In Vedic literature, it is said, the beginning of knowledge starts with restraining senses from sense gratification. Then a person is qualified to receive knowledge and get to the highest spiritual perfection. In text 83, we have read about benefits of one being liberated from the bodily conception of life, benefit one receives after hearing narrating this story. And in purport, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that this material world is the spirit soul's dream. During the night and during the day, people have dreams. Only when one is awakens, he can understand that the dream is a dream. For some people, it might take some time. The whole point is to awake people from the dream and to understand why they entered the dream. It is very hard to awake people from the dream. A great philosopher, Plato, wrote about the dreaming condition of a soul, and he described it as people in this world are living like in a cave. Cave means ignorance. And in this cave analogy, all they see are shadows of different things. Krishna says, if you see anything without connection to me, know that this is my illusory energy. Living entities are living in this cave, in a shadow world, They never see the sunlight, and sometimes, I'm sorry. And sometimes a person gets out for some reason or other, and he's amazed by the whole world out there. By the sunshine in Krishna consciousness, there is Krishna, there is loving exchange. In the cave, they just like cavemen fighting each other and don't see the light. So a person who got out thinks, what about those people in the cave? Let me go back and let them out. And he goes back into the cave and says, look, there is a whole world out there. There is light you can enjoy with Krishna. You don't have to look at the shadows here and fight each other. But they start throwing stones at that person and say, are you crazy? You should be locked away in a mental institution. This is a real world. There is nothing beyond this cave or beyond this lifetime, or just stay inside and tolerate all abuses and eventually convince a few others to come out with him. In material world, people fight for many things, for positions, for control. You can't convince people to become Krishna conscious until you show them. As they say, as one sees, he believes in it. Krishna says in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that this knowledge is the king of education and of knowledge, so you can directly perceive the absolute, and it's giving you endless happiness. These are results of bhakti. From Nectar of Devotion, we know that among other experiences, this knowledge gives immediate relief from all the stress. It is a beginning of all auspiciousness. One's life gradually becomes auspicious, and it gives transcendental happiness. Only direct experience can convince one to take Krishna conscious. So we have to give people more than just there is another world out there. We have to give people experience. What experience can attract one to Krishna conscious? We can give them a taste in different ways. Some people say devotees are saintly people, and people develop some taste in devotees. In other words, how devotees act will determine whether devotees will attract other people or not. The first thing people judge about Krishna conscious movement is not philosophy, although they like the prasadam, but they will not judge the movement by the prasadam. They judge on the basis of the people that are practicing. Sadhusanga is very important. If one doesn't want to associate with the people who practice Krishna conscious, he will not become Krishna conscious. The first thing devotees have to display saintly qualities. To attract people, we need to act like Krishna conscious people, and it means to act on the intelligent platform. Even if we are struggling with something and not realizing something, we need to control the intelligence. Anger and yelling at mudhas will not help the preaching. The first way to preach is to use intelligence. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that people follow examples, and we need to show that we are elevated people. If some people come to a temple and find the same version of what is going on everywhere else in the world, in politics and business, they will not get very attractive. How can we structure society so the saintliness is encouraged? By Varnashrama system, the saintly person, Brahman, is considered the top of Varnashrama. Nowadays, people think that Kshatriyas, administrative class managers, or Vaishyas, businessmen, are the heads of society. Some people perceive a guru as a manager. In general, people don't understand the Varnashrama culture. In Varnashrama system, Brahman doesn't manage. It is the highest position in society. But in our minds, engraved that the president is the highest position. Everyone should surrender themselves to the lotus feet of their spiritual master and act as a humble servant. We should be concentrating on self-control, austerity, tolerance. That's leadership. During Kali Yuga, there are no pure Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and so on. Roles and qualities are mixed and combined. Everyone should be focused on following the instructions of the spiritual teacher, sadhana, and service to Krishna and his devotees. I will stop here. I apologize for any shortcomings during reading and summarizing. Pan czekał po trupie ściekli, посім допіряли чекать, він по набігу бачити, як його намалоха.